6 ACC stars, including one huge surprise, all gone in the first round. We break down last night and look ahead to the big ACC names who could still have their NFL dreams come true. Our ACC Live NFL Draft Special starts now.
How about the show that this kid has put on today? Breaks loose. He's gone. Turns on the Jets. He's going to go all the way for six. Pressure. Set. Took it down by Bjorn. In stride of the 10 of the 5. Heather's Orange into the end zone. Touchdown.
Look at there. Jonathan Cooper going from Carolina blue to Cardinal red. The Arizona Cardinals showing off their top pick on their website. And Cooper gave NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell a huge bear hug. The NFL.com sharing this picture. Cooper, the first ACC player taken, but not the one everyone is talking about today. Welcome to a special ACC Live NFL Draft Special. I'm Jeff Michelle with Riley Skinner and via Skype, Russ Lande, GM of Junior Scouting and College Scouting Director for the National Football Post. Guys, the big story and the surprise of the first round, E.J. Manuel. The Bills had traded down to 16. They need a quarterback, and new head coach Doug Marrone had coached Ryan Nassib at Syracuse. All the pieces were in place to take Nassib, but the Bills went with Manuel. We spoke to him last week, and even then, he was extremely confident that he would go in the first round.
I do see myself going fairly high. It's just a matter of one of those teams that's fallen in love with me, and I think it's about 3 or 4 of them who have, so I think one of them will go ahead and pull the trigger on Thursday.
Riley, are you surprised? Not only was he the first quarterback taken, but he went in the first round as well.
Not at all surprised. And what we talked about earlier on Tuesday, knowing E.J. Manuel, we spent a lot of time with him, and all it was going to take was those in-person interviews when you get up on the whiteboard and he sits down in front of the head coach and the GM and the coordinators. They realize this is a leader. This is a character guy that's going to be the face of your franchise. And not only does he have the tools, the size, the speed, the legs, the arm, he's got the intangibles, and that's why he went first round. I'm not surprised at all. Despite what a lot of people say, I thought it was a fantastic pick by the Bills.
Russ, I know you really like Ryan Nassib. He was number 1 overall on your board. How surprised were you?
I was a little bit surprised, but not drastically. I mean, I think Nassib is a better quarterback prospect. When you look at what Manuel brings to the table, he has a great arm, which will help him deal with the real windy conditions in Buffalo. He's got very good accuracy, quick release, and he's a natural athlete who can make plays running with the ball, which fits perfectly in Buffalo's desire to do some of that run option. So when you add everything up, it makes sense that he's the Bills quarterback.
But was it a stretch or was it a reach at 16?
I don't know if it's so much a reach. I think they could have probably waited on him. But the reality is, if you have a quarterback you love, and you're considering him in the first round, you should take him in the first round. Because if you don't, and you hope to get him in the second, and you don't get him, you will regret that. Always take a quarterback because it's the only position you can't afford to be without.
He is now the future of the Buffalo Bills. It was a great moment for EJ, his family, Florida State fans. And of course, we all here at the ACC Digital Network have become fans as well as we've gotten to know him, but it was certainly a surprise. Manuel, one of 6 ACC first-round picks. Only the SEC had more. It started at 7 with Cooper to the Cardinals, then the stunner EJ Manuel, now the future, the face of the Buffalo Bills. 2 of his Florida State teammates, Bjorn Werner, Xavier Rhodes, went back-to-back at 24 and 25. Nuke Hopkins got into the first round at 27 to the Texans, then big Sylvester Williams at 28. He could be a great fit in Denver. Russ, Cooper's big and athletic. Common wisdom is guards drop in the draft, but he did not.
And I think the primary reason is the Arizona Cardinals made the decision before the draft. They were going to upgrade that offensive line to protect Carson Palmer. And even after those offensive tackles were taken earlier than expected, I think they said, we're still going to improve that line. We're going to take what we feel is the best guard. He can come in and play guard, or he could even move into center. I think it's a great pick for them. At least it helps get that offensive line going in the right direction.
Yeah, Russ and Riley, we heard them talking last night about potentially switching him to center.
Well, it wouldn't be a surprise and it wouldn't be a shock to Jonathan Cooper. I mean, he played a couple snaps at center early on in his career, and you look at his feet while watching that film, that sidestep, he's got the athleticism, speed, and ability to play that center position, because when you're in that position, it's hard to come by. You got to have a guy that can make a snap and also get a first step for that reach block. Jonathan Cooper has all all of those tools, and I think it wouldn't be a surprise he ends up in the middle of that line.
Cooper Star Heel teammate Gio Bernard, who's waiting to hear his name called, tweeted it out. I'm calling it now, future Pro Bowler for the Underdog 64. That's Jonathan Cooper's handle. Congrats to Coop and his whole family. At 7, Cooper's the highest a guard's been drafted since 1986. That's how good Cooper is expected to be. And 2 more Noles at 24 and 25. Bjorn Werner, Xavier Rhodes. Russ, Werner lasted longer than you projected. You thought he could be a top 5 guy, right?
Yeah, and I think part of it is he's a good athlete who's an excellent football player, and I think teams fell in love with some of the guys who were a little bit more explosive and a little better athletes. But I think he's a great fit for the Colts. I think he's going to start right away and be an impact guy who gets double-digit sacks on a regular basis.
And I think when you talk about a future Pro Bowler, I see that in Bjorn Werner. He's got the upside. Once he gets that tutelage of an NFL coach, I think sky's the limit for this guy. And he's going to be in that new, scheme. He's not only just going to have his hand in the dirt the entire time. He's going to be able to stand up, use that speed and athleticism in different ways in that defense. I'm excited to watch him for the Colts.
It's funny. Werner, after his Colts workout, he said it was the toughest one he'd had, and he didn't feel great about it.
Well, it's probably because he's doing things that he typically didn't do at Florida State. I mean, when you're used to having your hand in the dirt, being a 3- and 4-point stance, then you got to stand up and cover the flats, cover running backs out of the backfield. I mean, it's a whole new ball game, but I think he's up for the challenge.
Now, Xavier Rhodes says the Vikings never even spoke to him, but Riley, with so much passing in the NFL these days, a guy that big, that fast, that physical, you can't pass up a chance.
It's hard to come by. And we were talking earlier, it's funny, some of my teammates that have went in early in the round, they had never talked to these teams before, and it's kind of a chess match. That's how they do it. But I think the Vikings got a fantastic cover corner. He's physical, and like you said, that size and strength and length and height at the cornerback position, especially in a cover 2 scheme, along with having good press technique, he's going to be a fantastic corner in the NFL.
Now, by the time these guys were taken, that was 3 Florida State guys in the first round. And defensive tackle Everett Dawkins noticed, proud of his boys, tweeting out, "My dogs, that's 3 Noles, baby." And then his teammate, Noles kicker Dustin Hopkins, another guy who could be drafted, "Proud of my boys, Bjorn Werner, Xavier, great players with so much ahead of them. Noles are going like hotcakes," and they were right then. Absolutely, 3 of the first 25 picks in the draft, and Hopkins could be the first kicker taken. We'll have more on that later. It was a good night for the Noles, but not a good night for skill players. Just 5 skill guys taken in the first round, but 2 of them from the ACC. E.J. Manuel, the only quarterback. And there was a tight end, Notre Dame's Tyler Eifert, and 3 wide receivers, including Clemson's DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins taken 27th overall. The Houston Texans, Russ, Hopkins definitely fills a need for them, and they get a guy who was incredibly productive.
Yeah, I mean, he's a perfect fit for them. They've been looking for a receiver opposite Andre Johnson for a long time. It's hard to find big receivers who run sharp routes. He catches the ball well, and I think his ability to make plays running after the catch is what's so enticing for the Texans. It gives them another weapon outside of Andre Johnson to open up that offense.
This might be my favorite pick in the draft, and here's why. The Texans with Matt Schaub and their offense, they run a lot of naked boots. They run a lot of drawn-out pass plays. And DeAndre Hopkins, you saw in that film, he runs probably the best double move in college football that I saw this year. And when you have those naked bootlegs, that's when you set up the opportunity for double moves. And there's going to be so much pressure on Andre Johnson. I think DeAndre Hopkins, if he can stay healthy, he might be having a field day for a couple years to come.
And he lands in a great situation because this is a playoff team. This is one of the best teams in football, so he's already in a situation where he doesn't have to be the
and
guy.
Playing with a great quarterback in Matt Schaub. Like I said, this is my favorite pick of the draft right now.
The next pick at 28, the Broncos took North Carolina defensive tackle Sylvester Williams. That prompted Gio Bernard again. He was tweeting out about his boys last night. Gio, that's 2 in the first, Sylvester Williams and the underdog. Again, that's Jonathan Cooper. The draft fell perfectly for the Broncos. Russ, this is a guy who could potentially have gone much higher.
Oh, there's no question. I think when you look at a guy like Sylvester Williams, he's so big and athletic. It's rare to see a guy like him slide into the 20s. The Broncos jumped at the chance to get him. He's going to start for them immediately at a position of need and should be an impact guy who's able to make big plays behind the line of scrimmage for them.
Broncos president John Elway knows his team got lucky to have Williams drop to them. He tweeted, "Thrilled to select Sylvester Williams from UNC. His position has been a need for us, and he will be a tremendous anchor." Good call from the president of the Denver Broncos and a Hall of Famer. We asked you, which guy is the most ready to contribute right away? And we got a great answer. Polaris tweeted us back saying it's Cooper and Rhodes. Russ, who do you think contributes right away from these first 6 picks?
I think 3 guys are definitely going to start right away. I think when you look at Cooper, you look at Werner, and you look at Sylvester Williams, I think all 3 of them are going to play right away. I really think Werner's going to make the biggest impact and be an impact, game-changing pass rusher from the day he gets to Indianapolis.
How about Riley, you?
Russ, I wish I could make an argument and have somebody else, but I agree. I think Bjorn Warner might be the most impactful player early on. I just think now that he has the opportunity to play in that 3-4 defense, he's going to be able to show his athleticism a lot more than people realize just when he was a down lineman in a defensive end at Florida State. And I think when he gets used to dropping back in this coverage, he's got to get his stamina up a little bit because you get a lot more tired running and covering running backs than you are just going against offensive line. I think he's going to be fun to watch early on.
Some draft picks are about immediate impact. Some draft picks require patience, like the E.J. Manuel pick. Riley, how long before you think we see him on the field?
That's hard to gauge. What I think is going to determine if he plays early on or almost waits a year, it's going to be, really because how he gets used to, the NFL playbook and what the Bills want to do.
There's the picks by conference. SEC with 12, the ACC next with 6. That 12, by the way, matches the record set by the ACC, most first-round picks from a conference 7 years ago. Pac-12 with 5, the Big East with 1, but that one, Syracuse's Justin Pugh, who is the Syracuse, of course, coming to the ACC next year. Russ, I was hitting on that topic of when EJ eventually gets in. When do you see him being ready to take the field?
I wouldn't be shocked if he wins the starting job this year. I think he's a smart kid. He's going to be able to pick up this offense pretty quickly. I think a lot's going to just be how does he adjust to the much more complex defenses he's going to be seeing when he's going through training camp, going through the OTAs. If he handles that part, I think maybe their opening day starter.
Yeah, I think the biggest question mark is can he get adjusted to the speed of the game? At Florida State, a lot of his passes were down the field, toss-ups almost, one-on-one throws. But in the NFL, it's a lot more timing, a lot more precision and accuracy with those throws. And if he can get that down, get adjusted that speed early on in OTAs and minicamp, like Russ said, I'll not be surprised if he's a starter day one.
Okay, so we've run through the first 32 picks, 6 of them coming from the ACC. Now we're asking you, who is the next ACC player taken in the draft? Who goes first tonight when round 2 kicks off? Tweet us your guess at the ACCDN. Who's next on your draft board? Russ, here are the top guys you have still on the board from the ACC. And leading off, it's 2 Noles. Cornelius Carradine recovering from the torn ACL. Menelik Watson, then 2 running backs, Gio Bernard and Andre Ellington. And, of course, the big man under center for North Carolina State, Mike Glennon. Russ, let's start with Menelik Watson. Where could you see him going tonight?
I think he's going to go in the first 15 picks of the second round. I think teams view him as a raw guy, but he has great potential because he's so athletic and so powerful. And I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up coming in, and although he won't start as a rookie, a second-year guy starting at left tackle once he's in the second season.
Now, you talk about him being a left tackle, but he played right tackle at Florida State.
Yeah, I think what it is that was his first year playing major college football, so he played right tackle. But I think as he gets used to playing football, he's only played for 2 seasons, he's going to adjust. He's such a great athlete and so powerful. I think he can easily be a starter on the left side.
Of course, the left tackle is the prized position on the offensive line. And Menelik Watson, of course, we know his story. He was a basketball player from England who converted now to play football. The other Florida State Seminole we were talking about, Cornelius Tank Carradine. Riley, you think he would have gone higher if not for recovering from the torn ACL?
I do. He did everything in 2012 to deserve a first-round pick. But when you have an ACL tear in December, that caused a lot of question marks. That was the one, I think, factor that set him apart from first and second round. But look, whoever gets him in the second round is going to get a explosive, a fierce football player who's going to be great for your squad. And I think he did everything he could since his injury to now to prove to teams that he can be that player before the ACL injury. You saw what he did at the workout a couple weeks ago. He's come back even stronger. So good for him that he's recovered from that injury. I
want to expand our view a little second as the ACC gets bigger and bigger. Notre Dame, of course, starts playing 5 ACC games a year in 2014. Perhaps the biggest name still on the board right now, Heisman Trophy runner-up Manti Te'o. Russ, how soon can we see him taken, and who would be interested with him?
I think he's going to be a middle second-round pick. And the reason I say that is I think the teams that would be interested, like the Chicago Bears, like the Baltimore Ravens, those guys need middle linebackers. They're in the middle to late part of the second round. I think that he's a good fit for either one of them. I don't think that he fell because of the off-field things. I think he fell because he's not a premier athlete, and I think that's the difference. He's a good athlete who's going to be a good pro.
I agree. I don't think it was the off-field issues that pushed him to the second round. I think, not being a premier linebacker that you want to draft up for, I also think it was just a need basis for these teams. I mean, you see, there wasn't really another linebacker that surpassed him. It was just teams, right now, immediate needs wasn't a linebacker, and they weren't going to use that first-round pick on a linebacker. They stayed more towards the offensive and defensive line. So I'd be very surprised if he fall past the second round, though.
Riley, we really want to get your take on Mike Glennon. Everyone says he's got the NFL tools, the arm, to succeed. Where do you think he fits in?
Well, he does. He can make every throw in an NFL playbook, and that's rare to come by from a college quarterback making that transition. At 6'7", he's got the height. I mean, he's a lot like a Joe Flacco. He's not very mobile. He's going to be a pocket passer for sure, a pro-style guy. But when he gets into a camp and he starts throwing those 25 yards out, so it's 50, 60-yard throws in the air on a dime, and I think he's got great touch on his deep ball. I think would not be surprised if he goes somewhere in this second round where I think he deserves, because he does have all the tools. He just got to get in there and prove somebody that he's got the accuracy and the decision-making to be an NFL quarterback.
Russ, you like him tonight to go as well, right?
Yeah, I think most likely he's going to be a second-round pick. He's a good player. He's got a live arm. And I think he's better than people give him credit for when he is rolled out of the pocket and design plays, throwing on the move. I like him. I think he's got a chance to be a very good quarterback if he can cut down on the mistakes.
Now, there's another quarterback I want to hit on, and that's Sean Renfree from Duke. He was incredibly productive, very smart, a strong leader. He took a lot of hits, and you never heard him complain about it at all. Russ, how do NFL teams view him?
NFL teams like just about everything there is about Renfree. Smart kid. He understands all the passing concept, the protection calls. He's got great mechanics, gets rid of the ball quickly. He's very accurate. The issue teams have, right? His arm would be classified as below the line. It's not strong. So he's going to be a late-round pick by a team hoping that he eventually is able to improve his arm strength. If he can do that, I would be shocked if he becomes a quality starting quarterback in the NFL.
I agree, and I hate to ever say that somebody's going to be a great backup quarterback, but Sean Renfree's a guy that teams will hopefully take a chance on because, like Russ was saying, he's a cerebral guy. He's going to get a playbook down in a heartbeat. He's going to know the protection. So when he gets in there and he learns, from a starting quarterback, they know they've got the confidence that if anything goes wrong with their starter at this point, Sean Renfree can come in and it's going to be a seamless transition. He can carry that offense. I just don't know right now. He's got, like Russ said, he's got the arm strength and the playmaking ability to be a starting quarterback early. But look, if he gets a chance, year 2, year 3, I don't think he's going to falter at all.
An interesting thing about last night, no running backs were taken. None. But two of the best who could go tonight are ACC guys, Gio Bernard, Andre Ellington. I talked about them Wednesday on our Google Hangout with Pete Futak from Campus Insiders and Bleacher Report's Michael Shoddy.
It's possible that Bernard is the best back in the draft, but scouts I've talked to aren't as comfortable with him. You know what you're going to get out of Eddie Lacy. You know what you're going to get out of Jonathan Franklin. With Bernard, it seems like there's either great games or there's games where he disappears and just didn't get the rock as much as he should have. As for Ellington, again, could be the best back in this class, but I see a specific role for him. I don't want to call him a scat back, but he's also not a 20 times a game, carry the rock in short yardage situations. So he could end up being a number 2 at the next level, but still getting a lot of carries, a lot of pass receptions because he's very talented.
I love Bernard in sort of an Ahmad Bradshaw role. A little jack of all trades. He can return kicks. He can be a third down receiver. He can be that little scat back. You pair him with a thunderback, and all of a sudden he can be a 15-touch-a-game kind of guy who can carry the ball for certain drives and just kind of keep things moving. Ellington is a scat back. He's a home run hitter. He is a speedster. He's not, like you said, he's not going to be that workhorse type of guy, but certainly with his wheels, you want him in part of your offense. But again, in today's NFL, you don't, outside of Adrian Peterson, maybe Arian Foster, who's in that gimmicky system, you don't really have that one guy who you're going to say, hand the ball, hand the ball, hand the ball. You want a group of backs that can all kind of fit the type and do a little bit of everything, and certainly Bernard and Ellington can do that.
Thanks to both of them again for joining us Wednesday on the Google Hangout. Riley, we watched Gio Bernard week after week. I can't name a bigger game changer who showed up and made big plays than Gio Bernard.
Somebody better take Gio Bernard fast because I think he's, he's probably the best, if not the second most electrifying player in this year's draft. Watching him game after game, number one, he's just a flat-out playmaker. When he gets the ball in his hands, whether it's in the return game, in the receiving game, I mean, he had almost 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. But what I like about Giovanni Bernard, which in an NFL scheme, he's a patient guy and he's going to be good for screens and draws, but also you get a return guy in him. I mean, he has the ability to get back and take punts and kickoffs, and he can run between the tackles. He's a strong guy, kind of like a Maurice Jones-Drew. You know, he's low to the ground, 5'8". He's shifty, but he doesn't go down with arm tackles, and that's what I love about Giovanni Bernard.
Russ, he had over 2,000 all-purpose yards this past season. Where does he go tonight?
You know, I think Bernard's going to be a high second-round pick. I think a team looking for a guy that can contribute in all phases of an offense and make big plays while doing so, that's a guy that's not going to fall very far tonight.
And now we're talking about Gio Bernard and Andre Ellington. Russ, what separates those two?
Well, I think Bernard is a bigger, stronger kid, even though he's not a giant running back. Whereas Ellington is more of an elusive, out-in-space guy. To me, Ellington is Darren Sproles. If used correctly, he can be a dynamic offensive weapon, but he's never going to be a 20-touch-a-game guy.
We're certainly keeping an eye as well on guys who, heading into the 2012 season, were expected to eventually be first-round picks or high picks, and for one reason or another aren't. Let's start, Russ, with Virginia's offensive tackle, Ode Abushi. Why did he fall, and when will we hear his name?
I think you're going to hear his name in that third, fourth-round area. I think the reason he fell is, on film, what you get is a smart, technically sound, highly competitive player. But I think at the Senior Bowl and his workouts and the Combine, you saw that he's not a top-level athlete. So he's going to have some issues matching up with these elite pass rushers on the edge. So I think teams are going to be more comfortable in the third, fourth round. You take him and hope he can make up for his lack of athleticism with his good technique and competitiveness.
Abushi feels overlooked, and he sounds like he's going to use that as motivation. He tweeted this out: 31 teams are going to have a problem next year. That is a promise. Hey, it's never a bad thing to be motivated to succeed. That's for sure. Now, a year ago, if you'd asked anyone, they would have said David Amerson is a lock to be a first-round pick. He had 13 interceptions in 2011, just 5 last year, and we saw him get beat deep several times. Russ, what do teams think of him right now?
You know, teams are a little mystified. When you watched him a year ago, you thought, wow, this is a guy who has great feel for spacing and coverage. He can run with most guys. He's physical. This year, you didn't see that. You saw a guy who at times looked lost in coverage. He wasn't quick turning and running, and he lost ground to fast receivers. I think teams view him as a guy who has the potential to be a great player. But right now, they're betting on what he was in 2012, which is an inconsistent guy who struggled with the good receivers.
I mean, the thing about David Amerson, which kind of mystifies me as well, is that in 2011 he had that unbelievable season. I think in 2012 people started throwing away from him, and then he felt like, I've got to make my play. So he started jumping routes. He started doing things out of his position, out of what he needed to do, and that's when he started to get beat. But I still think he's going to be an NFL cornerback. We
will see when he gets taken, either tonight or tomorrow. It's time for other stories from around the conference. This is the ACC Now, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. The 6 ACC football stars taken in the first round of the NFL draft were feeling the love on Twitter. Sylvester Williams tweeted out, "Blessed to be a Denver Bronco. Can't wait to play in the blue and orange. #blessed. #Super Bowl." There you go. Thinking big. Bjorn Werner, "I'm going to sleep as a Colt. I still can't believe that. I'm so proud to be part of such an amazing organization." Hey, J.J. Watt, now a new teammate of DeAndre Hopkins, says, "Welcome to the team, DeAndre." It's nice to be welcomed by your peers, by the stars on your team.
Especially J.J. Watt.
There you go, exactly. Make sure he's a friend. Make sure he's an ally. Buffalo Bills, welcome to the Bills, E.J. Manuel III. No doubt about it, he is the future. The Boston College women's lacrosse team beat Virginia Tech yesterday 10-8 to advance to the semis of the ACC tournament. The Eagles are the 3 seed, and next they'll face North Carolina, the number 2 seed in the ACC and number 3 in the country. For the latest on the women's lacrosse tournament, go to the ACC.com. A huge baseball series this weekend in Raleigh. North Carolina slugger Colin Moran and the number 1 Tar Heels taking on 6th-ranked NC State. The Wolfpack come in on a 15-game win streak. Carlos Rodon is starting to dominate on the mound like he did last year. All 3 games are sold out. Another great series this weekend between top 25 teams. Georgia Tech and Clemson, there you see that there. Some other series. Virginia Tech, it's a matchup of rivals, the Cavs and the Hokies, Wake Forest and Florida State, and Maryland and Duke. And that is the ACC Now, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. We want to know, when the draft picks come up again tonight, who's the first ACC player taken? Tweet us at the ACCDN. We'll read your tweets. We haven't even talked about the most productive wide receiver in ACC history. We'll look at some of the top ACC wideouts still on the board and when they could go next on our ACC Live Draft Special.
Welcome to Ruby Tuesday, where we're cooking up over 15 chef-inspired selections for under $15, starting at just $9.99, creating something new for everyone. Delicious food at mouth-watering prices. And each comes with your choice of over a dozen fresh sides, including our Create-Your-Own Garden Bar. They're dishes you won't find anywhere else, cooked just the way you want with our special toppings and unique sauces. Over 15 delicious meals, under $15, starting at $9.99? That's right. Welcome to Ruby Tuesday.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
I'm Paul Christ, head football coach, University of Pittsburgh. You're watching the ACC Digital Network.
What's better, bigger or smaller?
Bigger!
So which would you rather have, a big treehouse or a small treehouse?
If it's big enough, you can have a disco. Oh, yeah.
Why do you not want a smaller treehouse?
Because it wouldn't be able to fit a flat screen TV, and then the TV would be about this big, and you would have to hold the wire. In the position you would hold the wire, you wouldn't be able to see the TV.
That's a pain in the buns.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not complicated. Bigger is better, and AT&T has the nation's largest 4G network.
Touchdown! Wow, what a catch! Touchdown! What a terrific catch! He caught it for the touchdown! And he's in. Touchdown, Duke. Can't say enough about that guy. Caught it! Touchdown! Butterby! And it's caught by Bernard. Connor Vernon inside the 10, to the 5, to the house, touchdown!
That's Connor Vernon, #1 in ACC history in catches and receiving yards, and now waiting to hear his name called at the NFL Draft. I'm Jeff Fischel with Riley Skinner, and on Skype, Russ Lande, scouting director for National Football Post. We're asking you, who's the next ACC player taken in the NFL Draft? Rounds 2 and 3 are tonight. Tweet us at the ACCDN. Connor Vernon, not a guy you hear about. I know there are downsides to him, but he's an incredibly productive football player.
This is when it comes down to the GMs and the way they evaluate players, because you look at Connor Vernon, when he tests at the combine, he's not going to blow it out of the water, but he's got the film, he's got the resume, of 4 years being as productive, like you said, of any ACC receiver in history. And all it's going to take is somebody to take a chance, say, look, this is a sure-handed guy, he's a playmaker, he knows how to read coverages, and he gets in the right offense. Somebody like a Wes Welker. If Wes Welker didn't go to New England, he'd have been an entire different receiver. But if Connor Vernon can get stuck in a system and in an offense that really highlights what he does, he's going to be a fantastic receiver.
Another wide receiver we're looking at from the ACC, Virginia Tech's Marcus Davis. Now, Riley, we know, I think probably everyone's seen the YouTube video of him not blocking. Right? Have we
had
seen
to
that?
bring it up.
Yeah, I think Deadspin, had the title, Marcus Davis doesn't feel like blocking ever. But he has the tools. He put up great numbers in an offense that struggled last year.
He did, and this is what I'm talking about. This is how GMs evaluate players. The difference between a workout guy and a film guy. And at 6'4", 232 pounds, that is a beast of receiver, and he is a speedy guy. He had almost 1,000 yards. But he has those glimpses of greatness where you look and say, not many other receivers can do this. And that's what someone's going to have to hedge their bet on, is they can get him to be consistent. Because that's one thing he lacked, was consistency and durability. If somebody takes that bet, that's the gamble. That's the gamble you play, and it could pan out. Because I think skill-wise, he's about as good as most of the receivers in this draft.
He says hearing all the flack about all that has motivated him to perhaps raise his game a little.
Unfortunately, all the NFL scouts see that too.
Exactly. His teammate Corey Fuller didn't play college football at first. He's a track guy, then decided he missed football, and since he's a Fuller, he transferred to Virginia Tech. So Russ, he's raw, unpolished, but you cannot teach speed.
You can't teach speed, and I think what's impressive is when he gets the ball in his hands, he gets the full speed very fast. He's got some elusiveness out in the open field, and he doesn't struggle to catch the ball as much as you would expect for a former track guy. So although he's raw and he's going to need time to develop, he's a guy that in that third or fourth round, I expect someone to take a gamble because his potential and upside is so outstanding.
He was certainly a favorite target. As the year went on, he became a favorite target of Logan Thomas, no doubt about it. Now, fullbacks. Let's give fullbacks a little time, huh? It's not glamorous. But arguably the two best are ACC guys. Florida State's Lande Pryor, Wake Forest Tommy Bohannon. Riley, Tommy Bohannon, a former teammate of yours.
Tommy Bohannon is how everybody calls him. I mean, this guy, he is a freak, a complete freak in the weight room. One of the strongest guys I've ever played with. But you look, as a fullback, they sent him out in passing routes, time after time, and his athletic ability is very deceptive. He's got fantastic hands, and he's going to stick his head in and he's going to hit the heck out of you play after play. So, unfortunately, the fullback position in the NFL is becoming less and less important, but there are still teams that love just a good, hard-nosed fullback, and I think Tommy's going to be probably the best, if not second best, in this draft.
Russ, the other name I mentioned, Lande Pryor, converted from running back to fullback for the team at Florida State. It was really a decision for the team. It wasn't about me first at all, a selfless move. It's proof that he can be comfortable with the pill, though, as well, because he does have that experience running the ball.
There's no question. I think just him making that sacrifice shows he's a team guy. But what's impressive is he's willing to deliver a blow as a blocker. He catches the ball well, and he's a natural runner with the ball in his hands. So I think late in the draft, some teams can take a gamble that he can continue to get better in terms of his technique as a blocker. And he could be a guy that ends up starting as a fullback in the NFL 2 years from now.
Pryor actually was the Orange Bowl MVP. I was down in Miami. He was incredible. He actually ran for a career high.
He runs like a running back, which is
he really does.
Unbelievable.
134 yards in that Orange Bowl, 2 touchdowns. The Orange Bowl MVP, fullback for Florida State. I mentioned we were talking about Bohannon.
Has there ever been a fullback as an MVP in the BCS
I don't know. We'd have to
game?
jump in the Wayback Machine, I bet. Sure, someone 50, 60 years ago, right? I mentioned we were talking about his incredible combine performance, how he can lift so much. Here are the best numbers from ACC Players. He benched 36 reps at 225 pounds. That was the best period for anybody. I think an offensive lineman tied him, but there was no one else who did any better than Tommy Bohannon at the NFL Combine. There you see Earl Wolf and Brandon McGee, 2 undersized defensive backs, but we can see them potentially go as well. And, of course, Xavier Rhodes. No one doubts his talents. Russ, when you're scouting, how do you weigh the on-the-field productivity versus a combine performance?
Well, that's always the tricky balancing part. You want to put the bulk of the weight on how they play on the football field because that's what they're going to do in the NFL. But you can't completely ignore the combine. The combine sometimes points out faults of a player and makes you go back and watch film to make sure you're not over giving the guy the benefit of the doubt too often. And also sometimes it helps you find guys that maybe were underutilized in college that you can go back and try to figure out a little bit more about. So you have to know how to use both pieces, but both pieces play a big part in the scouting process.
Riley, I believe you were number 1 in the shuttle. Is that right?
Hey, I was. Go back and look. No, I was top 2, I think. But it's I was a snoozer at the combine. I mean, no one's gonna.
But you had your shining moment.
I did. I had my one shining moment. But I'm the arguer of film. You got to rely more on what you do on the football field because that was a joke at the combine. But I'm sure somebody like Marcus Davis who's gonna run a 4.4 and drop a 40-inch vert, he's going to say, look at my tools, put me in the right system, and I'm going to blossom. And so, like Russ was saying, it's that combination of the two. But you see some players that get faulted, for having bad combines, but also some players that, get praise even though they don't have the film to back it up. I'm a true believer in film never lies, so I think film is more important. But again, what am I to say? One of the worst combine performers of all time.
Well, we have arrived. We've come to that time in the draft talk. It's time to talk kickers. In the past 32 years, 5 ACC kickers have been drafted. Of course, the list includes Sebastian Janikowski. Take a freakish left leg and mix it with the unpredictable Oakland Raiders, and you have a first-round pick. This year, another Florida State Seminole kicker could be taken, Dustin Hopkins. Russ, how far into the draft before a team would be comfortable using a pick on a kicker, specifically Dustin Hopkins?
Well, I think Dustin's probably going to be most likely a 4th to a 5th-round pick. I mean, NFL teams like what they see from him. He's a strong-legged kid. He's been very consistent most of his career. He's gone through a few fluctuations where he struggled. But I think overall teams view him as a guy that can be a place kicker in the NFL. Their concern is, can he also be a kickoff guy? I think that's the biggest issue teams have with him.
So Dustin Hopkins could be a late-round pick after an incredible 4 years in Tallahassee. A late-round pick. There's some of the great players in the NFL have been late-round picks. Here are some recent ones from the 4th through 7th round, which is now the Saturday part of the draft, day 3. Chris Givens, a Riley Skinner target at Wake Forest. Last year taken in the 4th round and had a nice season. And then TJ Yates, back up to another ex-ACC QB, Matt Schaub in Houston. Jonathan Dwyer had a couple of 100-yard games last year. Chris Clemens, Josh Morgan. And for the kids who don't remember, if you go back a couple of decades, our partner in crime, Dorsey Levens, was a 5th-round pick. So again, don't waste those picks.
Good shout out there. I like that to Dorsey.
So let's look ahead to these late rounds. Russ, give me a sleeper from the ACC.
You know, I really think that Raymond Buchanan, the linebacker from Miami, if you go back to 2011, before he got hurt, he looked like he was going to be a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick. So explosive and fast, chasing down plays. He's had the 2 knee injuries, back-to-back seasons, so he's not probably going to be drafted, or if he is, it's going to be very late. But if he can get back to his pre-injury form, I think he has the talent to be a starting outside linebacker in a 4-3 defense.
Wow. All right, Riley, give me a sleeper from the ACC.
Again, this is a guy you haven't even heard the name of, but Rodney Smith, the wide receiver from Florida State. The numbers aren't very sexy, but he is 6'6", 220 pounds, and he runs like a deer. And you see him, he can go up and get the ball at its highest point over these cornerbacks. And I think he wasn't thrown to as much, I think, as he should have been at Florida State because they had that depth at receiver. I think if he gets, I don't even know if he'll get drafted, maybe a 5th to 7th to a free agent. But I think when he gets into a rookie camp or OTA, he's going to make a lot of noise. And he's got good enough hands, and he's shifty. And at 6'6", you don't find many 6'6" receivers that can run like he does.
And let's not discount, he fits in well with any team. He's a captain for Florida State this past season, so there's no doubt a team is going to like having this guy on a roster. For more great draft coverage and, of course, highlights and analysis all year long, watch the ACC Digital Network. And on YouTube, subscribe. Go to youtube.com/ACCDN. You can see me more than you want, Riley Skinner, and coverage of every ACC team up and down the East Coast. And as we expand to 14, 15 teams, that'll include Syracuse, it'll include Pitt, it'll include Notre Dame as well.
It's a lot of FaceTime.
That's what people really want.
That's what people really want.
More Jeff Fischel FaceTime.
Yep.
All right, well, I want to thank Riley Skinner, Russ Lande as well from Chicago, helping us out all week long. You've been fantastic. Thank you, and thank you for watching ACC Live on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.